The fearless warrior. Zyra stood on the edge of the training arena, her heart steady, her eyes locked on her opponent. The air smelled of burning metal, and the ground beneath her boots vibrated from the cheers of the warriors watching. Her opponent, a massive reptilian fighter from the Zorak race, let out a low growl. His scales shimmered under the artificial lights, his claws sharp enough to tear through steel. He was twice her size, a monster feared in the galaxy. But Zyra did not care. She had fought bigger. She had fought stronger. And she had never lost. The Zorak warrior lunged at her, swinging his massive arm, trying to crush her in one blow. Zyra sidestepped with ease, moving faster than his eyes could follow. With a sharp twist, she struck, her armored fist slamming into his ribs. There was a sickening crack, and the giant warrior stumbled back. The crowd roared. Zyra smirked. Too easy. Her opponent tried again, slashing at her with his claws, but Zyra was already behind him. She leaped onto his back, grabbed his head, and twisted sharply. Cry kick. The Zorak collapsed face first onto the ground. He was still breathing, but he would not fight again for a long time. The arena fell silent for a moment. Then the cheers exploded. Zyra, Zyra, Zyra. She stood tall, lifting her chin. She was the greatest warrior of the Valkyrie, the strongest race in the galaxy. No one could defeat her. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Impressive, said General Kor, her commanding officer, walking onto the platform. His sharp golden eyes studied her. But strength alone is not enough. You need a real challenge. Zyra frowned. I have defeated every warrior you sent against me, General. Who else is left? Kor smirked. A human. Zyra's expression darkened. A human. She repeated, almost laughing. Humans were weak. Every species in the galaxy knew this. They were smaller, weaker, slower. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced abilities. The only reason they survived was because they were lucky. What kind of joke is this? Zyra scoffed. Kor remained calm. Not a joke. His name is Sergeant David Carter, a soldier from Earth. He escaped from our prison camp and is hiding on Xyros 9. Zyra's smirk returned. Then I will bring him back. Broken. Kor's eyes gleamed with amusement. You think it will be easy. Zyra crossed her arms. Of course, humans are weak. Kor chuckled. That's what the last team said, before he wiped them out. Zyra's smile faded. That's not possible. But the general pulled up a holographic screen. It showed battle footage. A dark jungle, flashes of gunfire, Valkyrie soldiers falling one by one. A shadow moved among them. Too fast, too precise. The last moment showed a soldier's face. A human's face. Short brown hair, sharp eyes filled with determination. Then the screen went black. Zyra's fingers curled into fists. This was not possible. How did one human defeat an entire team? She asked. Kor's smile was cold. That is your mission. Find him. Capture him. Or kill him. Zyra's blood burned with excitement. Finally, a hunt. She turned toward her ship, her heart beating faster. This human thought he could escape. He would soon learn the truth. No one escaped Zyra. No one. The hunt begins. Zyra's ship cut through the endless void of space, the dark planet Xyros 9 growing larger on the view screen. The planet's surface was covered in thick jungles, violent storms, and endless danger. It was a world where only the strongest survived, perfect for a warrior like her. She stood at the command deck, arms crossed, watching the scanners. Sergeant David Carter. A human. Just a weak, fragile human. And yet, he had escaped a Valkyrie war prison. He had defeated an entire team of elite hunters. Now, Zyra had been sent to capture him. She would not fail. A soft chime echoed through the ship's control room. Target detected. Her sharp golden eyes flickered toward the scanner. A faint heat signature moved through the dense jungle below. There he was. Zira smirked. The hunt had begun. Landing on Xyros 9, the ship landed smoothly on the jungle floor, massive trees towering above it like ancient guardians. The air was thick, humid, filled with the scent of wet earth and wild creatures. Zira stepped out, her boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. Around her, the jungle whispered. Strange insects buzzed. Hidden creatures watched. Zira activated her stealth helmet, scanning for human life signs. The display flickered. One life form detected. Distance, 500 meters. She moved quickly, silently, her armor absorbing sound as she stepped over roots and vines. Her heart pounded with excitement. This would be easy. Or so she thought. The first trap. Zira moved through the jungle with predator instincts. Every movement was calculated, every breath controlled. She was the greatest hunter of her kind. And yet, something felt wrong. The jungle was too quiet. Then she saw it. A single broken branch. Her eyes narrowed. It was too perfect, almost as if someone had placed it there on purpose. She turned sharply, too late. A metal wire snapped beneath her boot, triggering a hidden mechanism. A massive log swung down from the trees, aimed straight for her. Bam! Zira barely dodged in time, twisting her body as the log slammed into a tree behind her, splintering the wood. A few inches closer, and it would have crushed her skull. Her breathing was steady, but her mind raced. This wasn't random. This was a trap. She clenched her fists. This human was not running. He was waiting. And he was hunting her. Signs of a ghost. Zira pressed forward, more cautious now. The jungle seemed to close in around her, thick vines and mist making every step uncertain. Then she saw it. A small, empty campsite. The fire was cold. No footprints, no scent. It was too clean, too perfect. And then she noticed something carved into a nearby tree. Too slow. Her eyes flashed with rage. This human was taunting her. She slammed her fist into the tree, splintering the wood. Enough games. She activated her thermal scanner, sweeping the area. No heat signatures. No movement. Nothing. It was as if he had disappeared. The hunted becomes the hunter. Zira pressed deeper into the jungle, moving with the precision of a predator. But the more she searched, the less she found. No footprints, no scent, no sign of life. Her frustration grew. Then, a whisper, a rustle of leaves behind her. She spun around, weapons ready, but no one was there. Her instincts screamed a warning, but it was already too late. A hand grabbed her from behind, a blade pressed to her throat. A voice, calm and steady, spoke near her ear. "You're not the only hunter here." Zira's heart pounded. This was impossible. No one had ever snuck up on her. No one had ever outmaneuvered her. But this human had. Her pride burned. This mission was no longer about capturing a prisoner. Now, it was personal. The first encounter. Zira's body went rigid as the cold steel of a blade pressed against her throat. She could feel the sharp edge, steady and unshaking. No fear, no hesitation. This was not possible. No one had ever snuck up on her before. She was the best warrior in the Valkyrie Empire, trained since childhood to be faster, deadlier, unstoppable. And yet here she was, caught like prey. A deep voice whispered near her ear. "You're not the only hunter here." The voice was calm, controlled, not mocking, not arrogant, just stating a fact. Zira's mind raced. How did he get behind me? How did I not sense him? The human was shorter than her, not as physically strong, but his grip was unshakable. Every muscle in his body was tense, like a coil ready to strike. Her instincts screamed at her to move. Zira took a calculated risk. With lightning speed, she ducked low, twisted her body, and slammed her elbow into his ribs. Crack! The human grunted but didn't let go. Instead, He adjusted, shifting his stance like a warrior who had fought 1,000 battles. Zira spun out of his grip, stepping back to face him properly for the first time. Her golden eyes locked onto him. Sergeant David Carter, the rogue human soldier. He was nothing like she expected. His body was lean but powerful, his stance solid, his hands steady, too steady for someone facing off against a Varkari warrior. His short brown hair was damp with sweat, but his eyes burned with something dangerous. Determination. Zira had seen it before, but never in a species as weak as humans. She smirked, rolling her shoulders. "You're fast, but not fast enough." David's lips barely twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." Zira's muscles tensed. He wasn't afraid. "Good." She lunged. The battle begins. Zira moved like a shadow, her fists striking out with inhuman speed. David dodged. Barely. She spun, aiming a precise kick at his ribs. He twisted his body just enough to take the hit without losing balance. Interesting. Most opponents either blocked and broke their arms or got thrown across the battlefield. David? He absorbed the impact, adapted. Zira's smirk faded. He wasn't just fast. He was reading her moves. For the first time, she had to adjust. She feinted left, then right, then struck low. David was already moving. Her punch should have landed, but it didn't. Instead, he sidestepped, grabbed her wrist, and used her own momentum against her. Zira's world tilted as she felt herself being thrown. She crashed into the ground, the impact sending a shock through her bones. The jungle fell silent. For the first time in her life, Zira was on the ground. David didn't press his advantage. He didn't gloat. He simply took a step back, breathing heavily, watching her. He was studying her. Like a hunter. Like a predator. Zira's heart pounded. This wasn't just a human. This was something else. Something dangerous. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to her feet. Pain didn't matter. Losing didn't matter. Only victory mattered. Her golden eyes narrowed. "You should have run when you had the chance." David exhaled, shaking his head slightly. "Maybe. But where's the fun in that?" Zira grinned, blood rushing through her veins. For the first time in her life, she had found a real fight. A new strategy. Zira knew brute force wouldn't work. This human was different. She circled him slowly, her mind working, analyzing. If strength wouldn't win, then skill would. She feinted again, but this time she waited. David reacted, but only for a split second. That was enough. Zira shifted her weight at the last moment, twisting her body into an attack that no soldier could dodge. But David wasn't just a soldier. He didn't dodge. He countered. His arm snapped up, blocking her strike before she could land it. His other hand shot forward, fingers pressing into a pressure point on her wrist. Zira felt her arm go numb. Her vision blurred for half a second. That half second was everything. David slammed his palm into her chest, knocking the air from her lungs. Zira stumbled back, breathless. Her own body had betrayed her. No warrior, no one, had ever managed to do that. She looked at him again, really looked. This man, this human, was fighting not with strength, but intelligence, anticipation, adaptation, precision. He was not reacting. He was controlling the fight, and she was losing. The retreat. Zira was not a fool. She knew when to retreat. Without another word, she turned and vanished into the jungle, her body moving through the shadows. She needed to regroup, to rethink, to understand. She was Varkari. She was the best warrior in the galaxy. And yet, for the first time, she had been defeated. By a human. A strange feeling stirred in her chest, something she didn't recognize. Fear. Zira clenched her fists, her golden eyes burning with determination. This was far from over. She would return. And next time, she would not lose. The game of survival. Zira crouched in the shadows, her breaths controlled, her golden eyes scanning the jungle. She had never lost a fight. Not once. Not to any warrior, any species, any challenge. But here she was, running, her fingers curled into fists. It made no sense. How? How had a human bested her? He was strong, yes, but strength alone would not have beaten her. He was fast, but not faster than her. No, his true weapon was something else entirely. His mind. David Carter fought with precision. He did not overpower. He outmaneuvered. He anticipated her every move, adjusted, countered. Zira had never fought someone like him before, and now she had to change everything. A warrior's reflection. She found shelter beneath the thick canopy of twisted vines, her body still burning from their fight. Her ribs ached. Her wrist throbbed where he had struck a pressure point. Pain was not new to Zira. But this pain was different. Not just physical. It was the pain of realization. For years, she had believed strength was everything. Her people, the Valkyrie, had taught her that might rule the galaxy, that the weak were meant to fall. And yet David Carter had stood against her. She thought of the moment when he had her in his grasp, blade against her throat. He could have killed her, but he didn't. Why? Why had he let her go? She replayed every second of their battle in her mind. Every strike, every counter, every look in his eyes. Then it hit her. David was not trying to win. He was testing her, studying her, adapting. Her jaw tightened. If he could adapt, so could she. She was not weak. She was Valkyrie. And Valkyrie warriors did not make the same mistake twice. Zira stood up, rolling her shoulders. The next time they met, it would be different. She would not fight like a warrior. She would fight like a survivor. David's perspective, watching from the shadows. David Carter sat perched high in the trees, his rifle slung over his shoulder, eyes locked on the place where Zira had vanished. He let out a slow breath. She was good. Damn good. He had fought killers, mercenaries, and warlords before. But Zira was different. She was faster than him, stronger than him. But she had one weakness. She expected to win. David had seen it before. Elite warriors, trained from birth, so used to victory that they never learned how to lose, never learned how to adapt when things went wrong. And Zira, she had just lost for the first time in her life. David knew she wouldn't take that lightly. She'd be back. Stronger, smarter, deadlier. He needed to be ready. He reached into his pack, checking his supplies. Limited rations, one combat knife, a sidearm with 3 rounds, and a malfunctioning comm unit. Not great, but he had survived worse. His eyes drifted toward the night sky, barely visible through the dense jungle canopy. Somewhere out there, Zira was planning her next move. A small smirk crossed his lips. Good. That meant the real fight was about to begin. The jungle's deadly game. 2 hours later. The jungle was alive with sounds, creatures moving through the undergrowth, distant howls from unseen predators, the endless hum of insects. But something had changed. Zira could feel it in the air. The jungle was no longer just a battlefield. It was a hunting ground, and she was no longer the only hunter. David Carter was out there, watching, waiting. She had to turn the game against him. Zira moved carefully, silently. She adjusted her breathing, controlled her movements, became part of the jungle itself. Step, pause, listen, move. Every sense in her body was tuned for one thing, finding him before he found her. Then she saw it. A small footprint, barely visible in the dirt. A trail. A mistake. Her lips curled into a smirk. She followed, moving slow, patient, like a shadow creeping through the darkness. The footprints led her to a small clearing, where an old human supply crate sat open. She crouched low, scanning the area. No movement, no sound, only the whisper of the wind through the leaves. Her fingers flexed. This was too easy. She reached out. Click. Her blood ran cold. A trap. Something snapped beneath her, and before she could react, boom! A flashbang detonated. White-hot light flooded her vision, blinding her. A deafening explosion of sound shattered her balance. She staggered, cursing, instincts screaming. Too late. A figure dropped from the trees above her, boots slamming into her chest. She crashed into the dirt, blinking furiously, her vision swimming. Then she felt it, cold metal pressed against her forehead. David Carter stood over her, gun aimed at her skull. He wasn't breathing heavily. His grip was steady. His expression was calm. For the second time that night, he had won. Zira clenched her jaw. Unacceptable. But before she could move, David did something unexpected. He didn't pull the trigger. Instead, he sighed, lowering his weapon. "You're learning." Zira's mind reeled. "You had me." David shrugged. "I could have killed you 3 times already." She bared her teeth. "Then why didn't you?" His gaze met hers, serious, unwavering. "Because that's not how humans fight." Silence hung between them. Zira, still on the ground. David, standing over her. She had never been spared before, never been shown mercy. And she hated it. She wasn't weak. She wasn't defeated. She would not be defeated. Zira took a slow breath, locking eyes with him. This fight was far from over. And next time, she would not fall. The final duel. Zira sat in silence, her back against the thick trunk of an ancient tree. Her golden eyes stared at the jungle floor, but her mind was somewhere else. The human had spared her. Twice. It made no sense. In Varkari culture, mercy was weakness. A true warrior finished what they started. A true warrior never hesitated. And yet David Carter had the chance to end her, but he didn't. Why? She clenched her fists. This was not over. Her pride demanded vengeance. Her instincts demanded a rematch. This time, she wouldn't rely on brute strength. This time, she wouldn't underestimate him. This time, she would win. She stood up, rolling her shoulders, ignoring the ache in her muscles. Her body was tired, but her mind was sharper than ever. She had learned from her mistakes. David Carter thought he had figured her out. He was wrong. David's preparation. The calm before the storm. David sat by a small fire, sharpening his combat knife. The metal glinted in the dim light. His movements were slow, methodical, controlled. He knew Zira was coming. She was Varkari, a warrior bred for battle. There was no way she would accept defeat. Not like this. David exhaled, running his fingers along the edge of the blade. Truth be told, he respected her. She was skilled, fast, and relentless. A lesser soldier would have panicked after losing twice. But not Zira. No, she was adapting. And that made her more dangerous than ever. His eyes flickered to the jungle. The air felt different. The hunt had begun. The duel begins. An hour later, the jungle was silent. Too silent. David's grip tightened around his knife. He could feel it. The tension in the air, the unseen predator circling him. She was close. Then, a whisper of movement. David dropped low just as Zira struck from above, her blade slicing through the air where his head had been. He rolled, dodging another lightning-fast attack. She was faster. She had been studying him. She wasn't attacking blindly anymore. She was calculating. David grinned, adrenaline kicking in. Good. Zira landed gracefully, eyes burning with fierce determination. No more games, human. David nodded. Agreed. They charged at the same time. Their blades clashed, sparks flying in the darkness. Zira struck low. David blocked. David countered, aiming for her ribs. Zira twisted, avoiding the blow by millimeters. She was pushing him now. Her attacks were precise, her movements smooth. She wasn't just reacting. She was controlling the fight. David had to step up. He feinted left, baiting her into a counterattack. But she didn't fall for it. Instead, she used his own trick against him, shifting her weight at the last second, throwing him off balance. David barely had time to adjust before she slammed him into the ground. He grunted, rolling away just as her blade stabbed into the dirt where his chest had been. Zaira let out a slow breath, staring at him. For the first time, she had won the exchange. David wiped blood from his lip, nodding. "You're learning." Zaira's expression hardened. "I don't learn, human. I dominate." The battle intensifies. The fight escalated. Their weapons blurred in the moonlight, the sound of metal on metal echoing through the jungle. Slash, dodge, counter, strike. Neither could land a decisive blow. Zaira aimed for his throat. David parried. David lunged. Zaira dodged, landing a sharp kick to his ribs. He stumbled, but recovered instantly, sweeping her legs from under her. She fell, but twisted midair, landing on her feet. They separated, both breathing heavily, both bleeding. David wiped sweat from his brow. "Dan, she was good." Zaira smirked. "You look tired." David exhaled. "You look desperate." Her smile faded. She lunged again. This time, David didn't retreat. He met her head-on, their bodies colliding in a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Zaira had size and strength. David had experience and adaptability. She struck with raw power. He countered with precision. For minutes, they fought, neither willing to give an inch, until David saw his opening. She overcommitted on a strike, just for a second, and that was all he needed. He sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and used her momentum against her. Bam! Zaira hit the ground hard. David's knee pressed against her chest, his knife hovering just above her throat. The jungle was silent. The fight was over. The turning point. Zaira stared up at him, breathing heavily. She had lost. Again. David didn't move. He didn't press the knife deeper. He didn't finish her. Zaira growled, frustration burning in her chest. "Do it." David frowned. "What?" Her golden eyes blazed. "Kill me. End it." David exhaled, shaking his head. "No." Zaira's jaw tightened. "Why? This is war. I lost. You win." David leaned back slightly, keeping the knife steady. "Winning isn't about killing." She blinked. "What?" David continued, his voice calm. "You think strength is about beating your opponent, about proving you're better." Zaira didn't answer, because for her entire life, that was exactly what she had believed. David's voice softened. "Real strength isn't about domination. It's about standing for something, protecting something. That's what makes humans strong." Zaira's mind reeled. Everything she had been taught, everything she had believed, shattered. She had fought so hard to prove she was the strongest. But this human, this soldier, had just beaten her without killing her. She didn't understand, but she wanted to. For the first time in her life, Zaira asked a question she never thought she would ask. "What now?" David slowly stood up, lowering his knife. "That's up to you." Zaira lay there, staring at the night sky. She had always thought she was the strongest in the galaxy. But now she realized strength wasn't what she thought it was. And maybe, just maybe, this human had something to teach her, a new respect. Zaira lay on the jungle floor, staring up at the vast, endless sky. The stars shimmered like distant flames, cold and unfeeling, just as they always had. But now, something felt different. Her chest rose and fell in steady breaths, her muscles aching from the brutal fight. She could still feel the ghost of David Carter's blade at her throat, the weight of his knee pinning her down. She had lost. Again. And yet, she was still alive. The Valkyrie did not show mercy. Her entire life had been shaped by the belief that victory meant crushing your opponent, proving your superiority, breaking them so they could never rise again. But David Carter, he had her at his mercy. He could have ended her, and he chose not to. Zira closed her eyes for a moment, frustration and confusion battling within her. Why? She had never felt this before. This emptiness, this question, this doubt. Everything she had believed about strength, about power, was now a fragile thing, shaking beneath the weight of one undeniable truth. She had been wrong. The aftermath of the battle. David stood a few feet away, calmly wiping blood from his knuckles. He wasn't even looking at her anymore. Zira pushed herself up, slow and deliberate. She hated the feeling of being weak. But this wasn't weakness. She exhaled. It was something else. She studied David in silence, taking in the way he moved, how he held himself, not like a conqueror, but like a soldier who had seen too many battles, who fought not for dominance, but survival. Zira had spent her life looking down on humans, but David Carter had earned her respect. And that was something no warrior had ever done before. She wiped the dirt from her armor and turned toward him. "Why did you spare me?" she asked, her voice quieter than she intended. David looked at her, really looked at her, before sighing. "Because strength isn't about killing, Zira." She frowned, stepping closer. "Then what is it about?" David studied her for a long moment, then tossed a small stone into the fire. The embers flared. "Strength is about endurance," he said. "It's about standing for something. Not just fighting to win, but fighting for a reason." Zira's eyes narrowed. "And what is your reason?" David was quiet for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "To survive. To protect. To make sure the people I care about see another day." Zira blinked. "The people I care about." Valkyrie warriors didn't fight for others. They fought for glory, for dominance, for themselves. But humans, they fought for something greater. Her mind struggled to process it. David must have noticed because he gave a small smirk. "You look like someone who's just realized she's been lied to her whole life." Zira clenched her jaw. "I have not been lied to." David just raised an eyebrow. "Haven't you?" Her fist curled instinctively, but she didn't strike. Not this time. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if she was right. Zira's choice. The fire crackled between them, the warmth pushing against the cool jungle air. Zira sat across from David now, her mind turning over everything he had said. If strength wasn't about domination, then what was the purpose of war? "Your people, they don't conquer?" she asked. David let out a short breath, shaking his head. "Not like yours do." Zira scoffed. "Then how do you win?" David smirked. "We don't always win, but we never stop fighting." The word sent a shiver down her spine. She had spent her life believing the strong rule and the weak fall. But humans, they didn't give up, even when outmatched, even when outgunned. They just kept going. And that made them more dangerous than any species she had ever faced. She exhaled slowly. "That's why my people fear yours, isn't it?" David tilted his head. "I don't know. Do they?" Zira's mind flashed back to the stories she had heard growing up, the warnings whispered by Valkyrie leaders, the way her people called humans weak, but still refused to engage them directly. Was it possible that the Valkyrie were afraid? She had spent her life believing humans were beneath her. But now she understood why humans were so dangerous. They didn't fight for glory. They fought for each other, and that made them stronger than she had ever imagined. A new path. Zira sat in silence, staring into the fire. David waited, watching her, but saying nothing. She hated this feeling, this questioning of everything she had ever known. But she couldn't ignore it. Finally, she spoke. "What happens now?" David shrugged. "You tell me." Zira met his gaze. "I was sent to capture you, to bring you back to the Valkyrie." David nodded. "And She hesitated. She could still complete her mission, still bring him back to her people. But something inside her whispered no. For the first time, she was questioning if her people were right. She had spent her life believing she was the strongest in the galaxy. But David Carter had shown her that true strength was something else entirely. Zira exhaled. Her mission had changed. "I'm not taking you back," she said finally. David raised an eyebrow. "No." She shook her head. "No." A long silence stretched between them. Then David gave a small, knowing smile. "Good choice." Zira smirked. "Don't get cocky, human." David chuckled, tossing another stick into the fire. Zira watched the flames, her mind racing with new thoughts, new possibilities. For the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking about war. She was thinking about something more. And maybe, just maybe, this human had something to teach her. The warrior's choice. The jungle was silent. The fire between them crackled softly, sending faint embers into the night sky. Zira sat across from David, her golden eyes reflecting the flames. A Varkari warrior, raised to conquer, trained to dominate. A human soldier, built to survive, trained to endure. A few hours ago, they had been enemies. Now, Zira wasn't sure what they were. She only knew one thing. She was no longer the same warrior who had landed on this planet. The weight of a choice. David Carter leaned back, resting against a fallen log, his expression calm. He had been watching her in silence, waiting for her to speak first. He had won their fight. Again. And still, he had let her live. Zira's mind was a battlefield of conflicting thoughts. If this had been any other mission, she would have dragged him back to the Varkari Empire in chains. That was her duty. That was her purpose. But now she wasn't sure she believed in that purpose anymore. She exhaled, pressing her fingers against her temples. "This doesn't make sense." David raised an eyebrow. "What doesn't?" She gestured toward him. "You. This." She hesitated, trying to find the right words. "You should be dead. I should have killed you. Or you should have killed me. That's how it's supposed to work." David shrugged. "Says who?" Zira scoffed. "Says the galaxy. The strong conquer. The weak fall. That is how it has always been." David gave a slow, knowing smile. "Yeah. Then why are you still here?" She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped, because she didn't have an answer. She wasn't here because she had lost. She wasn't here because she had failed. She was here because she chose to be. For the first time, she had questioned her orders, and that terrified her. "What does it mean to be strong?" Zira stood up abruptly, pacing near the fire. "This is not how I was trained. This is not how warriors behave." David watched her calmly. "What kind of warrior do you want to be?" She turned to face him, eyes narrowing. "What?" David sat forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I mean, look at yourself, Zira. You could have run after the last fight. You could have called in reinforcements, sent a whole squad after me." Zira crossed her arms. "I don't need a squad to capture you." David smirked. "And yet, you didn't try again. Instead, you sat down, and we're talking." Silence. Zira hated how much that truth stung. She hadn't tried again. She had stopped. She had listened. She had questioned. No Varkari warrior had ever done that before. Zira let out a slow breath, her voice quieter this time. "What makes you strong, David Carter?" David thought for a moment before answering. "Humans. We don't give up. We don't back down. But we don't just fight for the sake of fighting. We fight for something bigger than ourselves." Zira frowned. "Like what?" David's face darkened slightly, old memories flickering in his expression. "Family. Home. Freedom." Zira scoffed. "Freedom is an illusion. The weak are ruled by the strong." David shook his head. "No. Freedom is the right to choose your own path." Zira paused. Choice. She had never thought about that before. Varkari warriors did not choose. They were made into what they were, forged in war, shaped by battle. But here she was, questioning. For the first time, she wanted to choose a new path. Zara took a slow breath, then turned to face David directly. What if I walk away? David tilted his head. From what? My people. My mission. David studied her, but his expression didn't change. Then what? She clenched her jaw. I don't know. And that was the problem, wasn't it? For the first time in her life, she had no orders, no path, no certainty. Just a question. David smiled slightly. That's the first step, Zara. She exhaled sharply. How was he so calm? If she walked away, her people would see her as a traitor. If she returned without him, she would be punished. And yet, for the first time, she didn't want to be what they had made her. She wanted to be something more. She looked at David again, her voice steady. I'm not taking you back to my people. David smirked. Yeah, you said that already. She narrowed her eyes. You're not surprised. He shrugged. I had a feeling. She scoffed. Annoying human. David stood up, stretching slightly. So, what now? Zara hesitated. The truth was, she didn't know. And for the first time, that didn't feel like failure. She looked toward the night sky, the stars stretching endlessly above. For her whole life, she had believed the strongest warriors ruled the galaxy. But now she saw a different kind of strength. Not in conquest. Not in domination. In choice. She met David's gaze. You have a ship hidden somewhere, don't you? David smirked. Maybe. She rolled her eyes. I could make you tell me. He chuckled. You could try. Silence. Then, Zara did something she had never done before. She laughed. It was small, barely there, but real. David smiled. Now you're getting it. She shook her head, exhaling. I don't know where this path leads, human. David gestured toward the jungle, toward the stars beyond. That's the best part. Zara nodded slowly. Then, without another word, she turned and walked toward her future. Not as a Valkyrie warrior. Not as a conqueror. But as something new. Something she chose to be. The end.